Okay, so hello everyone. Welcome to our speaker series, the Neighbourhood Justice Centre and our community session. I would like to thank everyone for taking the time to join us today. My name is Shaz and I'm the Project Officer at the Neighbourhood Justice Centre. The NJC opened in 2007 and is Australia's first and only community justice centre and a world first international mentor community court. The centre is a part of a global network of over 80 community justice centres worldwide and sits within the Specialist Courts and Programs Division of the Magistrates Court Victoria. In this session, we'll be hearing from our members from the NJC team about the programs and initiatives that are embedded within the community networks. So we are joined today by Sam Levy, who is a financial counsellor, as well as Sean Gaddis, who is our Fines Clinic Project Officer. After that, we'll hear from Alicia Ashcroft, who is the Manager of Education and Public Programs at the NJC. And lastly, we'll hear from Kylie Smith, who is the Senior Koori Justice Worker. So to start us off, I'll give a little introduction about Sam and Sean, who will be talking about financial counselling and the Fines Clinic. Sam Levy is going into his 7th year of financial counselling with Carlton Fitzroy Financial Counselling Service, located at the NJC. Sam is passionate about assisting people who are experiencing financial hardship and has assisted numerous members of the community. Through her participation in the Infringements Working Group and her knowledge of the fines processes, she has prevented vulnerable community members from ending up in the justice system. Sean Gaddis is the Fines Clinic Project Officer, and he's been at the NJC for 2 years and initially became involved in the clinic as a student through university placement. Sean is passionate about social justice and supporting disadvantaged and vulnerable members of the community navigate the complexities of the infringement system. He also assists in the operation of the Fines Clinic, which enables students to gain practical experience in interviewing clients and file management, as well as in assisting individuals deal with their infringements. I will hand over to Sam and Sean, who will be doing a Q&A style discussion with us today.
So Sam, can you tell us about your role at the NJC?
Sure. So I'm one of 2 financial counsellors that work at the Neighbourhood Justice Centre. My colleague Linda has been here since the NJC opened. For me, I've been here about 6 years. And we work with people who are experiencing financial hardship within the city of Yarra. We'll also work with people who are homeless or Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people who have connections to Yarra City. So we'll assist people with debts. We'll also assist if they've got any financial issues. So maybe they've got utility issues, telephone issues. Also being financial counsellors where we're based means that we see a lot of clients who have infringements and fines, and often, prior to COVID, they would potentially be attending court around some of those issues. And I suppose because of the amount of people we see with fines, a few years ago, we were involved with starting a fines clinic at the Neighbourhood Justice Centre as well. So we assist with that clinic as well.
Okay. Working with a mix of disciplines is central to the NJC practice approach. How does your role in particular work within that model of the NJC?
So we're like any other, so I'm part of the client services team at the Neighbourhood Justice Centre. So that team is made up of numerous other services such as mental health workers, Kylie, who's here today, the Koori Justice Worker. We've also got drug and alcohol workers, and we sit in that team. So I suppose the approach is the same in that we believe that to work with someone in the best possible way is to work holistically with them. And most people who approach the centre usually don't come with one issue. I mean, sometimes you might get the odd person who's just got one matter that needs resolving, but often the client group that we end up seeing may come in for, say, drug and alcohol issues, or they're newly arrived, a multitude of issues, and they may have financial issues that need addressing as well. And so once they're linked in with one of the workers at the NJC, then it's very easy for them to do a warm referral to one of us around assisting them with their financial issues.
Yeah.
And we do the same. So if someone comes in to see us and they've got a financial issue, it may come out as we're interviewing them or getting to know them, but there's other issues that they might be housing, it could be all sorts of things. And then we're able to refer them on to appropriate workers, which seems to work really well.
Mm-hmm. And in regards to the fact that there's a court inside the NJC, which is particularly unique to the NJC, how does your role as a financial counsellor function in relation to the court?
So as far as I know, I think we're the only financial counsellors that sit within a court.
Yeah.
So we're quite unique in that sense. And because of the nature of the Neighbourhood Justice Centre and that holistic approach, I think having financial counsellors on site offers people, like I was saying before, just that holistic approach where you don't have to refer out and maybe you don't know who you're referring to, or the person might get lost in the system of being referred. We're there, we're on site, we know the other workers, they can chase us up, and we work in conjunction with each other. We also, we get referrals from the lawyers who are there who have clients that are there.
Mm-hmm.
Our magistrate, Mr. Fanning, might ask myself or my colleague to do a financial report around a person just to get a sense of where they're at and what's happening for them financially. And also, I suppose, prior to fines reform, we had special circumstances that were heard at the Neighbourhood Justice Centre. So people with infringements who would come to court, usually with special circumstances, if they were homeless or they had mental health issues or drug and alcohol issues or family violence. And myself and Linda could seek leave to represent that person in court in front of a judicial registrar. So, I suppose quite unique, but that's probably how we can support people in the judicial process.
Could you tell us about the NJC Fines Clinic?
Yeah, so the Fines Clinic had been running since, I should have done my research about this, it was at around 2017, 18, and was set up due to the high number of people that we were seeing with infringements and who were coming to court, that maybe sheriffs had executed their warrants and they needed to come to court. So often we were seeing people at the later stage in the fines process. So it was decided there were a few different clinics running, and one of them was around fines. So we were approached to manage that clinic. And as it grew, we now work in conjunction with Fitzroy Legal Service, and keeping in line with the Neighbourhood Justice Centre's approach. The clinic also has a multidisciplinary team. So we have financial counselling students as well as law students working in partnership together. And they would see clients from hopefully from the beginning of the process and see their matters through to the end with Carlton Fitzroy and you, Sean, because you're involved in the clinic, and also Fitzroy Legal Service monitoring students and giving advice to them and options to them, but them really having courage of seeing clients and really getting involved in that whole process. And I think the unique thing about it was for students was that because we have so many services on site, they could go to registry with clients and look at fine conversions where appropriate. They could talk to corrections about that. They could do warm referrals to other people within the client services team. So the students really got a unique insight into how the place worked. And unfortunately, because of COVID, we had to stop running the clinic, but we're really hoping to be back up and running later this year because we were busy. We had lots of clients, and clients would refer their friends, which was, always a good advertisement that things were going right. So.
And what's the outcome that the Finance Clinic aims to achieve for the clients that it sees?
I think, like anything, when things get to be too much, you just ignore them. Well, not everyone, but a lot of people do. And I know, speaking from experience, I've, ignore things. But so we would have people come or be referred to us who maybe knew that they had issues with fines, but were unable for various reasons to open their bills or make that phone call.
Yeah.
And so having people that were working alongside them, I think, is kind of invaluable. And especially with the client group that we mainly deal with, where there may be mental health issues or people are homeless or they've got drug and alcohol issues and they've got so many other things going on in their life that dealing with fines can be, really down the bottom of your list. But they are something that's never going to go away. And so being able to, just let people know what options are out there, like I spoke about special circumstances, and we've recently started doing work and development permits for fines, so where people can work off their fines by maybe seeing counsellors or doing voluntary work or in training, so it's a non-financial way of dealing with their fines. And a lot of people wouldn't know about that unless they were seeing someone who could give them that information.
Yeah.
So I think in that way, it's probably takes some of the burden.
Yeah, absolutely. And I imagine that would allow clients you were speaking about earlier to address some of their other issues that they're dealing with in their life.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to speak about a client that I saw from the Finance Clinic. He was a 48-year-old man. At the time that I saw him, he was homeless and had a serious addiction to alcohol. The client presented with over $60,000 worth of infringements, close to $50,000 worth of these infringements were toll fines. The other infringements consisted of speeding, parking, and other road safety offences. Some of these fines were newly incurred, and it was ascertained that the client was not currently receiving any support for his experience of homelessness or alcohol addiction. The client wished to be supported through these circumstances, and so we referred internally to a launch housing worker, as well as an alcohol and other drug counsellor from Odyssey House. After this, we got in contact with the client's general practitioner, as well as a doctor who had supervised an alcohol rehabilitation service for the client in the past. We obtained letters of support from both doctors regarding the client's experience of homelessness and serious alcohol addiction, respectively. We then drafted an application to have the toll fines withdrawn based on the client's special circumstances and sent this application along with the letters of support to Fines Victoria. For the newly incurred fines that remained with the enforcing agencies, we drafted separate applications and sent them to the enforcing agencies and the issuing agencies. As the client had numerous driving infringements and dangerous driving offences, which would unlikely to be withdrawn by the enforcing agencies, or the court, we supported the client in applying for a work and development permit, which Sam spoke about earlier. This allowed the client to work off some of the dangerous driving infringements through his engagement with the alcohol and other drug counsellor, which we had referred him to earlier in our engagement. We assisted the client in setting up a payment plan for the remaining court-issued infringements. This payment plan was for the minimum payable amount per month and came directly out of the client's Centrelink payments, so that he did not have to worry about actively paying these infringements. The result was the toll fines, which we had applied to have waived based on the client's special circumstances, were in fact waived, as were the newly incurred infringements, which we applied directly to the enforcing agencies. Through the support of the client's launch housing worker, since then, the client has secured housing and no longer experiences homelessness. And through the support of the client's Odyssey House alcohol and other drug counsellor, the client has worked off some of his dangerous driving infringements, which were subject to the WDP. And beyond this, he has remained engaged with the counsellor and has made great progress since then in overcoming his addiction to alcohol. So I think the NJC is really exemplified in this case study, in the multidisciplinary way that we can go about supporting clients.
Thanks, Sean. All right, excellent. So next we have Alicia, who will be discussing the NJC's Community Arts Program and our current exhibition. A little bit about Alicia. Alicia Ashcroft has worked in the community justice education space since 2018. Alicia is passionate about community justice initiatives, human-centered design and innovation. At the moment, she sits within the program's innovation team at the NJC and is responsible for supporting initiatives to activate the NJC status and engagement as an international mentor community court. So I will pass over to Alicia.
Thank you so much, Shaz. So I'm going to talk about our community art program, which is called Urban Campfire. So a little bit of a different focus to what was just been spoken about in terms of, very client-based work at the NJC. So Urban Campfire is the name of our rotating art exhibition, and it's a partnership program with Belgium Avenue Neighbourhood House, which is also known as Barn. There are 2 exhibitions held each year, and the art is displayed all throughout the entire Neighbourhood Justice Centre. And we exhibit a multitude of different art mediums. So photographs, sculptures, lithographs, watercolours, found object pieces, and everything in between. Artists come from all walks of life, and participating is a great way for people who just love creating or are professional artists to share their work. And sometimes we have artists that have work that is displayed in the building that have actually also accessed our services before. So it may be someone that might have come before the court or someone who has been a client with one or more of our support services, such as with Sam in financial counselling. So for some people, the art program can be a really full circle experience. So why do we have an art program? Some of you may be thinking. There's quite a few different reasons around it, and it is really premised on the principles of community justice. So I'll outline a little bit of that now. With a community justice model, you would want to ensure that the building, the place, is an accessible and welcoming place, and that it reflects the community that it serves. Community justice is in part about working with the community to strengthen their capacity. And when I say community, I'm referring to those who live and work in the city of Yarra and those who have a close connection to the area. So the exhibition does create a really welcoming environment, and all my slides have different pieces from our current exhibition in it today. The artwork can provide a comforting distraction to people who may be experiencing stress when they're entering the building for a range of different reasons. It reflects the creativity of the residents of the city of Yarra and provides a community exhibition space. So we are located as a building in the heart of Collingwood, which is historically a very artistic and creative neighbourhood and still is today. The program creates relationships with different community members as either individuals or part of bigger community groups or programs. And it provides community members with a therapeutic model of participation with the centre, but also with other people in their local community, with other artists, with other service providers. Belgium Avenue Neighbourhood House, Barn, is the community organisation that we partner with for this, as well as many other programs. And that is another really essential part of the community justice model, is partnering with local organisations. The curator for Urban Campfire comes from Barn, and they also run community art development workshops for art to be created for the exhibition. So these community art development workshops provide an opportunity for creative expression, often from marginalised community groups, which aligns with the principles of community justice. It creates positive social connections through different workshops. And it's also an opportunity to discuss the NJC and other related services in the Yarra area to community members that may not have the opportunity to learn about them otherwise. The pieces that are in this photograph that's on your screen at the moment are all hanging pieces that are displayed at the entrance to our centre. And they were created through different workshop groups with the Lifting Spirits group, the Yarra Seniors Arts group, and the Barn Vietnamese Women's Friendship group. So bringing different groups together to create art and have it displayed. So I've given you a bit of a general overview of why we have an art exhibition, and I'm going to narrow down and talk more specifically about our current exhibition. So as I mentioned, we would traditionally have 2 exhibitions every year with art hanging for 6 months. And that's been going on since the beginning of the NJC. So we've always had an art program. COVID, like everything else, impacted Urban Campfire. And our latest exhibition was only installed in January, and the previous one was up for almost a year. Much of the work in our current exhibition was created through 2020, and a lot of it throughout the lockdown. The artwork that I've displayed on the back of this slide is called Stuff Happens by Phil Edwards, which I thought was pretty fitting to start talking about some COVID work. I'm going to talk about 2 different art projects that happened during lockdown. And this first one is an example of collaborative artwork via distance, the Exquisite Corpse pieces. So Sue Kent, who is the manager of Belgium Avenue Neighbourhood House and Collingwood Neighbourhood House, has been passionately delivering local community programs for 41 years. And Sue is a former sculptor and uses art as a common language. And this was her idea, the Exquisite Corpse Project. There are 10 pieces of art with 12 artists. And this whole project is modelled off an old childhood illustration game that Sue remembers growing up, where children would draw different body parts and the paper would be folded and hidden from the next child. So this is essentially what the artists did. It was a way to keep artists connected with each other despite lockdown and to share work. Each Exquisite Corpse piece had a theme, and the one on display on your screen here was ballet dancer. But every artist, so there are 3 artists for each piece, brought their own interpretation to their portion of the work. And they all operated in secret from each other, so without telling each other what they were doing. I'm going to actually show you a video of Sue now, just explaining the works better than I can.
The Exquisite Corpse project came about through COVID, actually. And so I thought that it'd be really great to develop a project that connected people and artists that were at home and not able to fully create their journey with their art. The themes that were explored through the work were themes around humanity and the environment, the sacred, and some of the pieces really came together. You would swear that we were actually cheating and talking to each other, but actually it came together with some extraordinary artworks in the end. So it kind of reached out in a kind of community development way in terms of the arts. No expectations, nothing was wrong. That's kind of what I loved about it. And it really, you felt like you weren't alone during a really dark period.
Oh, there we go. So that was just Sue talking about that project. The other art series that was produced during COVID in partnership with Belgium Avenue Neighbourhood House were the Isolation Portraits by Bree Hammond. And this is the description that was put together, and you can see in our building now. This series documents people staying home during Melbourne's ongoing COVID-19 lockdown. And Barnes' edition of this series features some of the wonderful and resilient community who call Collingwood and North Richmond housing estates home. Over the course of a week, Bree and Barn visited residents at home and took photos through windows, down hallways, across doorways and fences to ensure social distancing was maintained. The residents shared their experience of lockdown and a little bit about their backgrounds, and the results were truly uplifting and depict the resilience of this incredible community. This program is really about staying connected with the community that the Neighbourhood Justice Centre serves and our partner organisations. Thank you so much for listening to me talk about this program with you today. And in the follow-up email, I'll ensure to include a link to our online exhibition. So that's up and running now. This last artwork that I have displayed here is Inevitable Yellow by Phil Edwards again. And this is the inevitable end of my presentation. I'm going to hand back over to Shaz now and I'll stop sharing. Thank you.
Thanks, Alicia. All right. So next, we'll be hearing from Kylie, and Kylie's going to be discussing community initiatives in crime prevention and public safety. She'll be focusing on two initiatives, one with Victoria Police and the second which is in regards to working with community groups to achieve successful outcomes for them. So a little bit about Kylie. Kylie Smith has been in the position of Senior Koori Justice Worker at the NJC for over 7 years. She works as a conduit for the Aboriginal community to the courts and Victoria Police. She works to address the underlying causes of offending by providing a variety of support services to clients with complex needs. Kylie is a strong leader and advocate who works with the wider community to build social cohesion and capacity. So with that, I'll pass on to Kylie.
Thanks, Shazia. First of all, I would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people and pay my respects to their elders, both past and present, and future leaders coming forth. And I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of people from other lands that are with us today, and other Aboriginal people who are, I'm going to call it inverted commas, in the building with us today. A little bit about me, yes. So I'm Kylie Smith. I'm the Senior Koori Justice Worker here at the Neighbourhood Justice Centre, and I have a very vast, wide role, as Shaz pretty much pointed out. One of the differences between perhaps myself and a Koori court officer is that I am not a court officer. I'm a part of the client services team at the Neighbourhood Justice Centre, and I also am a part of many, many groups that are a combination of services and community. So I'll just start off by talking a little bit about the first tier, which is the local level. So I sit in a number of groups which are working with community, for community, and involve health services, legal services, local community services within the City of Yarra, and the Yarra City Council, which is the local government, and of course Victoria Police. Some of these groups are the Yarra Aboriginal Advisory Group. So that is a mixture between some of the other groups that I will talk about and an advisory group to the Yarra City Council. So we put forward a number of initiatives on a local level and do the consultations to be passed through Yarra City Council for the councillors to pass motions for come times of election. The Yarra Aboriginal Support Network is more of a frontline version of the Yarra Aboriginal Advisory Council, or group rather, and that is a group of health and legal and community services and Aboriginal community members who get together and discuss issues that are happening in the local community and receive feedback from community as for things that they'd like to change or things that they're observing as concerns, and we put forward solutions to deal with that. That group also involves Victoria Police, which is really good to have Victoria Police around the table to be able to have direct discussions or to hear the feedback from community and what community needs are. Another group from there is the Billabong, which is a consortium of health and legal services and also local services combined. And it is a barbecue breakfast that's held weekly for the local parkies, homeless people and Aboriginal people, and the people of the residents of the Collingwood flats. Through that, one of the things for me through that is that I get to extend my work at the NJC in terms of case management and being a conduit for others to the outside with the Billabong is actually meeting with people in person and hearing their concerns. Through that, I might myself actually make a referral to Sam, for example, for them to come and have a chat with Sam about money matters. Or it might be discussion about perhaps for an individual, perhaps you and I should get together and have a chat soon when you have a bit of time, which will, which is a discreet way of perhaps saying you have a court matter coming up and let's get together and negotiate all of these things without me breaching your privacy in a public setting. Through that also, though, I will have other community members who come and liaise with me on a number of other things, because through word of mouth in community, they've heard that I might be the one who, if I can't address the specific inquiry, I can certainly point people into the right direction or make a referral into the right direction for that. From there, we also have the Aboriginal Lives Matter Stopping Deaths in Custody working group, which is Yarra City Council, a number of Aboriginal organisations and Aboriginal community members working together to look at a number of things to do to raise awareness in regards to deaths in custody, including public murals and T-shirts and posters and things like that, and just as working on what hopefully will spread out to be multiple municipalities getting on board with that. We do not support deaths in custody, obviously, and that we would like to be all work together towards the reduction of and the abolition of deaths in custody. Further to that, just one more is being a part of the public drinking reference group for the local government area, which is a direct advisory reference group, which does discuss policy and public experience of the law and how it has affected people, and that then feeds up to the next stages of whether or not that law shall continue or whether it shall finish, which is it is expected to finish later on this year. That leads to a regional level. So on the local level, I have a lot to do with Victoria Police, and that's about engaging police to engage with community, and over the history of time, perhaps those relationships haven't been as smooth as they could be. So creating opportunities, for example, with the Billabong barbecue, is to from time to time have police officers come down without their uniform on, so the community can meet them as everyday individuals, and that takes away some of the barrier in terms of interacting with Victoria Police. And that also gives an opportunity to build those connections with who the police Aboriginal liaison officers are, who specific people in different stations are, in terms of perhaps me being able to make a phone call with a client or refer a client to them to have a discussion about a matter or an intervention order situation and various other things like that. On a regional level, I'm also a part of through the Department of Premier and Cabinet, the local Aboriginal network, which then brings in even greater Aboriginal services, more councils, Department of Education, Department of Health, varying other services to get together and talk about the needs of community and how to address them on a regional level, which includes taking portions from the local level and dispersing and seeing if certain things from certain local government areas may work in other local government areas as well. And I sit on the Regional Aboriginal Justice Advisory Committee, which is through the Department of Justice and Community Safety. And that is an even larger regional network of services all the way through from prisons to Department of Health to local services. And that is discussing even higher levels of issues and how they can be taken care of by services, and also addressing funding needs and allocating funding towards certain programs. All of these levels then feed up to, on a state level, to the Aboriginal Justice Caucus and also to the Aboriginal Justice Forum. So each part of working with community and listening to community's voice, it's a great to be a conduit for that message to travel up to people who are higher, who might have a stronger chance of actioning the needs of local community. I neglected to mention a really important point, that all of the community groups, especially because they involve the voices of community members, are, really important strategies in terms of promotion of health, and having people's voices being heard, and because of that, the involvement of community within the processes that surround the things that have a great impact on their life is actually, as with all of the other holistic services that are provided and things that we've discussed today, is a crime prevention strategy within itself.
Thank you everyone for joining us today and taking the time. We hope we see you in the next sessions on our speaker series.